When America's biggest oil companies fear Iran more than they trust Trump's navy, you know the balance of power in Hormuz has shifted. U.S. oil giants are clear: no warships in the Strait of Hormuz, no tankers leaving port. Trump's shoot and kill orders sounded tough, but for jittery oil executives, they haven't been nearly enough to calm Hormuz. Iran's so-called Mosquito fleet of fast attack boats is forcing even the U.S. Navy to rethink how safe its own ships really are. Amid a fragile ceasefire in the Gulf, major U.S. energy giants are once again sounding the alarm over how secure the Strait of Hormuz really is for their ships. Chevron's chief executive, Mike Wirth, has openly warned that U.S. naval escorts will be needed before large-scale oil and gas shipping through the strait can safely resume. Speaking to CBS News, Wirth stressed that tanker operators now want hard assurances on cargo safety, not just verbal guarantees or political statements. This is what Mike Wirth warns, and I quote, "I think in the early days, it's very likely that you could see naval escorts, because I think some of the risks are not just mines that could be placed in the strait, but they could also be risks that could come from the land in other forms. So I think having the Navy with those ships that make the first transit would provide a higher degree of confidence than if there were to be something happen that you'd have some measure of defense." Unquote. He underlined that vessels would only start transiting Hormuz again once there is genuine confidence that the maritime security picture has improved. This renewed caution comes against the backdrop of Donald Trump's earlier orders for U.S. forces to clear the strait and to shoot and kill any Iranian boats caught laying mines. Those orders were issued as fears escalated over the threat posed by Iran in what remains one of the world's most critical oil choke points. A recent report by the Hudson Institute has also underlined the enduring danger from Iran's naval strategy in the Gulf. The report notes that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps still retains significant asymmetric capabilities at sea, despite suffering notable losses to its conventional navy. These tools of pressure include so-called Mosquito fleet tactics, using fast attack boats, naval mines, and swarm-style operations to overwhelm larger vessels. Many of these craft are described as small, highly maneuverable, and heavily armed, with some even configured as potential suicide boats. The report ultimately concludes that although Iran's traditional naval strength has been weakened, its ability to threaten shipping and project risk in the Gulf remains very much intact. Iran has effectively built two navies, a traditional force of frigates and submarines, and a parallel shadow fleet run by the IRGC. U.S. Navy and Pentagon assessments say the IRGC Navy has now taken center stage in this conflict, overshadowing Iran's conventional ships. Iran has reportedly deployed a Mosquito fleet of small fast boats, armed drones and coastal missile batteries designed to work together. These boats can sprint at roughly 40 to 60 knots and be fitted with heavy machine guns, rockets, naval mines, or even small anti-ship missiles. Their size and wooden hulls make them hard to track on radar, easy to hide in coastal caves or fishing harbors, and cheap enough to lose in battle. Each fast boat can be sacrificed without major strategic loss, yet even a handful are enough to terrify shipowners and insurers watching Hormuz. Analysts say Iran doesn't need to control the sea in a classic sense, it just has to make the route dangerous enough that others hesitate to use it. A few drones and a few small boats, used cleverly, can choke the world's most strategic waterway at risk without formally sealing it shut. Remember, the Strait of Hormuz carries roughly 1/5 of the world's total oil supply, making even minor disruptions hugely consequential. Even brief disruption there becomes instant global leverage, and Tehran is clearly leaning on that power as it bargains with Washington and its neighbors. Alex Plitzers said, and I quote, "They call them Mosquito fleets because they're small and annoying, and they hit. But they're enough to bite and be obnoxious. They've realized they don't have to actually mine the straits. A couple of drones and a couple of small boats have been able to choke the world's largest strategic waterway. At risk without actually permanently closing it, and wreaking havoc on the markets." Unquote. IRGC small boats are cheap for Iran to lose, but every skirmish they trigger is costly for global trade, naval deterrence, and energy prices. For US planners, the real question is less about Iran's hardware and more about what Tehran is willing to endure to keep using this high-risk strategy. The Iranians are not deterred, Plitzers warns. arguing this confrontation feels existential to Tehran, and that makes its Mosquito fleet especially dangerous. Meanwhile, uncertainty still hangs over the second round of US-Iran peace talks in Pakistan. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Pakistan on April 24th, ahead of the expected arrival of the US delegation. However, Araghchi ruled out any direct talks with the US side during that visit, dealing a fresh setback to Trump's diplomacy push. Reports say Iran planned only a brief Islamabad stop with no face-to-face meeting with US officials. Araghchi met Pakistani officials including Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, and Iranian messaging said the visit focused on bilateral and regional issues rather than nuclear negotiations with Washington. An Iranian lawmaker and official messaging indicated that no nuclear talks with the United States were scheduled after the Araghchi-Dar meeting. Iran's top diplomat was also expected to leave Pakistan before Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner arrived for the US side of the talks. On April 24th, the White House confirmed it was sending envoys to Pakistan for talks, naming Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner as the American representatives.
It's made to send Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to Pakistan at this point, given that there have been questions about the sincerity of Iran engaging in talks. Does this indicate that you have a better understanding of who's in charge, kind of which faction is leading that country?
Well, look, as you know, and I spoke about it earlier this week, the president was flexible in granting an extension of the ceasefire throughout this time. The president has decided to dispatch Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner back to Islamabad. The Iranians want to talk. They want to talk in person. And so the president is, as I've said many, many times to all of you, always willing to give diplomacy a chance. So Steve and Jared will be heading to Pakistan tomorrow to hear the Iranians out. We hope progress will be made, and we hope that positive developments will come from this meeting, and we will see. And the president, the vice president, the secretary of state will be waiting here in the United States for updates, and the vice president, I understand, is on standby and will be willing to dispatch to Pakistan if we feel it's a necessary use of his time. Go ahead, Kristen.
The first one on Iran. With this group going, does that mean that you have gotten, the United States has gotten any kind of unified proposal from Iran, or are they going over there without any proposal from the Iranians?
We've certainly seen some progress from the Iranian side in the last couple of days. Again, the president has made the decision to send Steve and Jared to hear the Iranians out. And so we'll see what they have to say this weekend.
Second question on Kash Patel. Does the president still have full confidence in Kash Patel to lead the FBI?
The president does still have confidence in the FBI director and in our law and order team to do what they've been doing so well over the course of the last year and a half. If you know, Kristen, and I wish more people would cover it, the crime rates in this country have completely plummeted. We're at a 125-year low in murder rates across this country. You look at what's happened in Washington, D.C., new numbers released. Murders are down nearly 60% in our nation's capital, which is something I know as all of us live here, we can be very grateful for. So the president is grateful for the efforts of the great men and women of the FBI who are help making this happen. Karen, go ahead. Sure.
Did the president sign off on that? What was his involvement, and why now after ratcheting up some of the rhetoric around that earlier this week?
As you saw, Judge Jeanine Pirro, or former Judge Jeanine, U.S. Attorney Jeanine now, put out a statement saying that the case is not necessarily dropped. It's just being moved over to the Inspector General, who has critical tools at their disposal to continue to look into the financial mismanagement at the Fed. This has obviously been a priority for the president. If you drive by the Fed building, the president has a point. This is a project that's been going on for a very long time. It's costing taxpayers billions of dollars, and I think it's in the best interest of the taxpayer to get to the bottom of it. So the investigation still continues. It's just under a different authority, and that's what you'll continue to see.
Was the White House very much with Senator Tillis over this, specifically given his objections?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if the White House Legislative Affairs shop was in touch with the senator, but as we've always maintained, Senator Tillis should do the right thing and move to confirm Kevin Warsh as speedily as possible. He is a phenomenal candidate to lead the Fed, and we shouldn't be holding our nation's economy hostage because of a disagreement with the Department of Justice. Go ahead, Benny.
Can you share with us what led to this reclassification of the marijuana that the president just did the other day? There's a lot of stuff on social media, like a lot of GOP isn't supporting supportive of this. But I was just wondering if you could share kind of the process of what was behind this.
Sure. Well, as always, the president hears from a number of people, both inside and outside the administration, and frankly, the American people. If you do look at the public polling on this issue, it is overwhelmingly popular with the vast majority of Americans. And the rescheduling will lead to more research into cannabis as a drug, especially for those who need it for medical treatment. And so the president was willing to take this step to do that at the behest of the American public, who largely support it, and many of his health advisors on his team who he spoke with about it, as you saw them in the Oval Office yesterday discussing it.
Caroline. Is President Trump still looking at having the president of Lebanon and Netanyahu come here to meet at the Oval Office? And secondarily, is the president looking forward to the WHCA dinner tomorrow night?
Yes, so we did have representatives from both Israel and Lebanon here. There was another extension of that ceasefire, which is another win for the world, for the United States, and again is evidence of President Trump and his team doing a tremendous job at negotiating for peace all across the globe. So we're very grateful to both Israel and Lebanon for choosing to work together and continuing these conversations, and we hope that there will be a day where we welcome the leaders of both countries. And yes, as for tomorrow night, I hope that we will see all of you there. I know the president is very much looking forward to it. I think it's quite fitting that in our nation's 250th year, the most transparent and accessible president will be attending the White House Correspondents' Dinner for the first time. And his speech will be very entertaining. That is what I will tell you. So everyone should tune in. And then finally, on a personal matter, this will likely be my last gaggle for some time. As you can see, I'm about ready to have a baby any minute. So I will see you guys very soon. I know you'll be in very good hands with my team here at the White House, and I know all of you have the president's phone number personally, so I have no doubt that you'll have a shortage of statements and news from this building while I'm gone. So we'll see you guys this weekend.